With a disturbing report on Trump's plans to deploy the military to push his MAGA agenda while cracking down on domestic opponents in a potential second term. It would be an extraordinary power grab, and it's alarming nonpartisan experts. Today, the Associated Press detailing Trump's repeated hints of an expanded role for the military and the lack of guardrails to restrain him. As Trump and his advisors, quote, suggest they would have wide latitude to call up military units for action inside U.S. borders. And just in case people weren't paying attention, Trump making his intentions very clear. For example, on the campaign trail, Trump complaining that he was blocked from using the military to quell protests in Democrat cities in his first term.
New York City is a crime den. Chicago is a crime den. One of the other things I'll do, because, you know, you're supposed to not be involved in that. You just have to be asked by the governor or the mayor to come in. The next time, I'm not waiting.
Trump isn't hiding the ball here. He's openly saying he would bring in the military. Trump reportedly looking to exploit the rarely used Insurrection Act, a 1792 law that allows presidents to call on reserve or active duty military units to respond to unrest in the states, an authority that is not reviewable by the courts. In the last century, the Insurrection Act was at times used to protect civil rights groups during school integrations. It's only been used 40 times in U.S. history. The last time was over 30 years ago when George H.W. Bush sent troops to L.A. amid the Rodney King riots. In his first term, Trump threatened to use military forces to curb protests after the murder of George Floyd. And then, ahead of the 2020 election, Trump said this.
Let's say there are threats. They say that they're going to threaten riots if they lose on election night, assuming we get a winner on election night. What are you going to do?
We'll put them down very quickly if they do that. We have the right to do that. We have the power to do that if we want. Look, it's called insurrection. We just send in and we do it very easy. I mean, it's very easy.
Trump has told supporters to expect, quote, vengeance in a second term. Today, we're learning about how he might try to enlist the military to help him achieve that. Joining me now is Michael Beschloss, NBC News presidential historian. Michael, it's always so good to have you here. What's your response to this latest reporting about Trump very publicly threatening to use the Insurrection Act to further, and let me be clear, his personal goals?
Right. Take it seriously, Katie. I think you would agree with me. You know, you remember in 2016 and after Trump was elected, people would say, you know, this is just bluster. He's not going to really carry through on some of these threats of violence and overusing the power of the presidency. This is a moderate who loves to make deals. He'll, you know, Chuck Schumer will become his best friend. Remember that? That was all totally wrong. Take him at his word. He has told us he is going to use the American military, not in the way that George H.W. Bush did, just as you said, to, you know, quell unrest in Los Angeles in 1992, or Eisenhower and Kennedy to integrate schools in Little Rock and in Oxford, Mississippi. He's going to use it to suppress his domestic opponents. We have learned in the January 6th committee and elsewhere how often he was aching to use the Insurrection Act to send in the American military into a city or into a state to crush the opposition. This is what authoritarians do. This is what fascists do.
And, you know, Michael, it's my opinion here, of course, that Trump is too stupid to do this on his own. And the reason why I say that is Trump is too stupid to do this on his own. He requires the loyalists that will enable him to do this. And the concern that I have is dictators, obviously, you know, still have people helping them be dictators. So how much should we as Americans be concerned about a Trump second term, especially considering how absolutely public and vocal Trump and his enablers have been about what the plans would be?
Sure. You know, he's told us, you know, actually, it's probably not in his interest, because if he wants to get elected next year, it probably makes more sense for him to pretend to be someone who's moderated. So why he's being so frank, I have no idea, unless it's just anger, unless he wants to scare his opposition in the meanwhile. But, take a look as late as January 6th, 14 days before he was supposed to leave the presidency and almost did not in 2021. The evidence that we now have that he was not surrounded by enablers, as bad as some of these people were. Bill Barr was gone, but there were other people who said in the Justice Department, we will resign if you invoke the Insurrection Act or abuse the power of the presidency. How many times did you and I hear Donald Trump, when he was president, out talking to a rally say, I'm president and I have powers that are so big that I don't even talk about them, but one day I will use them. That's what a dictator said. If you elect Donald Trump, we're going to incur the serious danger that all of us Americans are going to be living under a presidential dictatorship. That's not what our founders intended.
And so, Michael, I guess one of the questions I have for you then is this: how do we convey this message? Because there's a subset of people out there that think that this doesn't affect them, right? It's happening to the others. It's very much this us against them mentality. I'm going to side with Donald Trump. Nothing bad could ever happen to me because I'm on Trump's side, and yet they forget, or they maybe are just ignorant to the reality, which is Trump is only in it for himself. So how does that message get conveyed to those that need to hear it the most?
Well, I have been writing books and studying presidential power since I was 18 years old. And so this is something I've thought a lot about for decades. And I just have to tell you, presidents in the United States have too much power. Thus far, we've relied on the fact that we've had people like George H.W. Bush or Dwight Eisenhower who know that it's the responsibility of a president to be restrained in using power such as martial law or the Insurrection Act. In 2016, our luck ran out. It may run out yet again next year. If that happens, just the Insurrection Act alone gives a president who is lawless or even obeying the law and just wants to use the military and use violence to curb his opposition enormous power. Perhaps the courts can curb it, but as you well know, the Supreme Court at this moment was already 1/3 appointed by Donald Trump. He appointed a lot of judges. He will yet again if he becomes president again. All I'm saying is watch out.